Record. I think we need to record it to the computer, but I'm not sure about that. Not to the cloud. That's just my experience. I don't know. What do you think? I think if it's fine, it's fine. All right. Welcome everybody to Unit 1 of Lambda School. I am Pace Ellsworth, so we're going to be learning about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The basic building blocks of the internet. So we are going to do lots of different little things. As far as my background, I studied some computer science in college. That was many years ago. Since then, I've done some development, some project management. I had an app where we did some cryptocurrency trading with Python scripts and some nice APIs, and so that was fun. You know, along all those ups and downs later, we're now. Let me go ahead and just do that. Now we are. I teach here. I also work. I'm a contractor with Logitech, which is a nice company. They make nice webcams. They make nice headphones like these, and they make nice mice. I think I don't have a Logitech keyboard around, but yeah, they make those too. Lots of keyboards. And what I specifically do is they have the higher end like video conferencing cameras now, and video conferencing is a huge hit now that all the companies are saying that nobody can travel anymore ever. So that's the way things are. So it's yeah, it's going all right, but I am looking for a more actual like coding job on the full time. So I'm in the middle of that process, just like I'm sure many of you will be in the near future if you've not already started. Development is an amazing career. It's probably one of the most creative things you can do. You know, some other things that are pretty creative, obviously, are lots of engineering jobs, and lots of other things. Obviously, art. You know, any form of art, anything like that. Any form of managing people, especially small people, like teachers. Those are pretty creative jobs. So. But I'm glad you're here. This is definitely something that is having a huge impact on the world today and in the world in the future. There will always be opportunities if you learn these skills, always, because every single business out there needs to improve the way that they reach other people in the world. So let's start and just think a little bit about the pieces that we are going to be working with. So there's HTML, and that's the style of the page. So let's learn a little bit just about the history. And I know you saw some of this in the pre-course work, but let's dig into it. All right. So HTML is interesting. It's not actually a programming language. You can, in some ways, do some things that are programmatic. But for the most part, let me share my screen right here. Oh, and as a matter of practice, let's do this. What I'm going to do, Spencer L, if you could DM me your contact email, and I'll add you to the Slido. Let's do that real quick. And then as a matter of course, I'm going to spend all my time with WEBPT17 open in Slack. And anytime I talk about anything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little thread. And threads are super great because then you can put all of the replies and all of the comments, and feel free to write as many comments as you want in the thread. That way we can keep the main channel clear, so it's very easy to search through everything. So I'm going to make a little HTML thread. I'm going to use this little thread. Hey, is that a better thread? It's a better thread. Ooh, Red thread. Oh, cool. Awesome, I like that. And there are different colored threads, that's nice. All right, so feel free to reply to that thread right now and tell me what HTML stands for. So go ahead and write something in there. And then hypertext markup language, cool. So it's a language, it's not a programming language per se, it is a markup language. So as you can see here, oh, here's the schedule. I forgot. Here is our UI1 schedule. Boom. Boom. Okay. Typically, I have some links, additional links to share for that also, but we're good for now. So the thing about HTML, it started off as this idea. Okay, how do we? What is some standard that we can apply so that we're not just writing in regular language, regular English, we're actually giving it some style. Okay, so HTML, oh yes, and as far as that goes, the Slido. Yes, other housekeeping, I keep forgetting. All right, so if you have any questions about the curriculum, then or anything that we go over, then you will submit them in this fantastic, we'll go ahead and have the SLs pin this thread, questions link. This will be the questions link for the rest of our time together, okay? And this will be, and this is where you'd submit your questions. It's an extremely simple app called Slido. And you can go in there, you can request any questions. Your question won't show up automatically. It will be something that can be managed over, and basically if you ask any questions that are just more structural, like, oh, where do I submit my form, or who's my TL, or what's my 5th day, or you know, something like that, or how do I contact front desk, all that stuff, then we'll answer those in the help channel or one-on-one with your TL. Anything that is content related, I will answer here in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and share access here for that. And all right, Spencer, you should be able to, you should get an email ASAP on that. All right. Yeah, so HTML is this fancy way of structuring your page. It's very much the kind of like the bones of your page. It's not you know, all of the style, but it is a way to arrange your content. So that's a big piece of it. And one of the most important things of it is that for the computer to understand how your page is organized, just like you have different types of bones, some are very specialized for certain things. These little bones right here are very specialized. They're your sharpest bones. And then you have little tiny, you know, bones that are very similar right here, and you know, kind of similar to your vertebra. And those are specific types of bones that do certain things. And then you have bones like your femur and your humerus, things like that, that are very long, big, strong. So you have this different structure to your body, right? And that's defined, your shape is defined by your bones. Take all your bones out and you just fall apart. And so we could give you some kind of a demonstration of that. Let's see what we can do actually. So I've got this crazy idea. We could possibly take, all right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go to, and you know, I'm not, this is taking a risk here because some of these are not. Okay, all right, there we go. If you don't know XKCD, this is a fantastic webcomic for, this is often about you know, science, but it's usually pretty funny. A lot of it's about math and programming. So here's the so let's read this comic. Here's the situation. This line is here, but it's going up towards here. Okay, so good to bad. So things will be bad unless someone does something to stop it. Will anyone do that? We don't know. That's why we're showing you this. So you don't know, and the graph says things are not bad, but if no one acts, they'll become bad. Well, please let me know if that happens. Based on this conversation, it already has. Okay, so that's fantastic. Quite apropos. All right, so obviously this is zoomed in a crazy amount. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. You can see it's still 150%. In case you didn't know that you could do that, try it on your browser. You can do a control plus or minus on the keyboard. You see the plus or minus up by the escape key or the delete key. Same on a Mac, you can do it with command plus or minus and just change the size of your page. It's a useful thing to do. And we'll use that more later. But notice how everything on this page has some structure. We have this little section over here, this section here, and this section here, and this section down here. And inside that, you have this little section here. These buttons are neatly organized side by side. Remember to please put all of your replies, including these, inside our neat HTML thread, which is scroll up a little bit, you'll find it. So keep your thoughts in the thread, which is up there. Okay. But yeah, so there is some structure here, and these are neatly organized. And so let's dig into this. Factotum and hint 2. This is your power tools right here. If you right click and hit inspect, some of you I believe can do this if you hit F12. Ooh, this is zoomed in quite a bit too. All right, so there's that. I've got this down here, but let me move it to the right. And let me zoom out a bit more on this and then bring that over. And you know what? We can cover up most of that schedule. We don't need to know too much about that. So we've got plenty of space to play with this. Okay. So these are your dev tools, and you can do a lot of fun things with your dev tools. We've got, let's see if we can get, oops, there's your elements. Oh, there we go. I can drag that down. Here is where all of your HTML is. The dev tools are pretty nice. You can actually just hover over anywhere in the HTML script over here on the right, and it will highlight the applicable section on the left. It doesn't do it in reverse that way. But if you do right click and inspect a specific item, it will jump to that item. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So you can do that. And so I can go in here and so I can even change this text. This is only going to change it for me. It's not going to change it for the entire world. But I can change it just for me. I can change it. And now it says, oops, instead of next. So I can, isn't that cool? Yeah, so that's a fantastic little thing you can do. Feel free to, oh yes, yeah, Control or Command 0 will give you a zoom it to normal, just next to the plus and minus. But yeah, you can see that there's some structure here. So as you've noticed, you have this comic nav class. Okay, so we'll get into what classes are. And it's a UL. What is UL? Somebody give me the answer to that. What does that stand for? Does anybody know in the HTML? Unordered list. Yeah, it's an unordered list. So in that unordered list, it arranged them in a specific style per this class. And now we have these 5 list items in this list. Okay, and they're side by side, which is kind of cool. And in them there is a link, and the link goes to one, which is the very, very first one. This last one goes to the most recent page. Isn't that smart? And then this one will take you to the next one, and this one will take you to the previous one, and this one will take you to random one, which is kind of just kind of nice. So a little script is running on that page to give you a random comic. All right, so this is kind of how it is. You'll start every HTML file with this doc type HTML at the top. We're going to be using a tool called CodePen that actually does this part for you, so you don't have to think about it. But it will be there if you create an HTML file. It'll kind of just show up. And then everything else is going to be inside this tag called HTML for Hypertext Markup Language. And so that's how you know that an HTML file is an HTML file. It needs to be inside an HTML tag. All right, and then customarily, what happens then is you have the head and you have the body, and that's it. That's all you have in an HTML file. You have the head and you have the body inside the HTML tags. Now, what you do inside those, the head is basically, now as you notice, I hover over the body, everything's highlighted. Hover over the head, nothing's highlighted. The head is not for anything physically on the page. It's more like, kind of like the brain. It's kind of just, or maybe the ligaments. It's tying this page to everything that's invisible. Everything that happens outside of the page happens in the head. So it will link to the CSS, which is going to be, the CSS is kind of like the skin, the hair, everything that's feature oriented. Okay, it's the style, it's the clothes, everything of your web page. Okay, so all of the colors, all of the sizes, some of the actions, so some dynamic stuff, but pretty much just in simple things. Like if I highlight this, the way it changes color, that's CSS. That's not HTML, that's not JavaScript. When I hover over that, it changes color, and that's a CSS feature, which we'll talk about too. Okay, so all of these little things you go in, and inside the head you have links, titles, some scripts, JavaScript, here we go, and a couple of things, meta properties. All right, so that's the head. All that stuff is invisible to the page. And then in the body, you have everything else. Now this page uses a lot of divs, and also uses some things that are more orderly, like unordered lists, and then uses in here A's, which are anchor tags. Who remembers, yeah, pseudo hover is what allows you to change the color in CSS, but who remembers when very, very old time, early websites had anchor tags, and they would even have a little anchor icon on the right side of the link to say like, hey, this is a link, it'll take you somewhere else on the internet. We don't do that anymore because everybody knows now that if something is kind of colored a different way or underlined, then it will be a link, pretty much. Or if it does something when you hover over it, it's typically a link. But it used to be that people didn't have their links styled that way, and they just had links after them. And you'd basically click the little anchor icon, and that would take you where you need to go. So there's that, and there's this nice little thing called brr. Now brr is actually short for break, so that's a nice thing that'll break. It just does a little extra line in between what you have, and so that's a nice. It's really just because what these abbreviations and everything come from old typewriters. So you'd have a break and it would skip down a line, and then that's it. That's good. And then you have all kinds of other stuff in here. You have these image tags, okay, and that would source an image. So images are stored in these image tags, and you'll have a source on the image, and typically that's going to be a PNG or JPEG. You know, could be a bitmap if you're really roughing it. Typically JPEGs and PNGs on the internet, and but also GIFs, and we could do that. And then you have alt text is nice. It kind of tells you what the image is about, tells the computer what the image is about, and yeah, so that's the basic structure of the web page. Now this is a really old HTML file. The CSS is really old too. So it uses some kind of outdated, generally outdated, structure. Notice that there's just divs galore in here. It's kind of what they call div soup. It's just divs and divs and divs, and have with a bunch of specific IDs and classes, and these are kind of really explaining what they are. Well, it's not recommended that you use so many divs as your general structure. It's not a bad idea to wrap almost everything in divs in your code, but keep them structured inside things that are more semantic. So what does semantic mean? It's a very, we use it all the time. Sometimes we laugh things off and say, oh, that's just semantics. You're just using semantics as if it's a bad thing, right? It's just the study of meaning, okay? So that's all it really is. It's just saying that we want your tags that describe your website to be very meaningful. So we're going to use this. Nice little site called CodePen, and I've got these old pens that I should probably link you to, but all right, let's we'll just start a fresh one. Okay, so we'll do some UI1 semantic HTML. So this is a nice quick little page web app you can use to obviously you became acquainted with it in the pre-course. So yeah, we could do some simple HTML. In fact, we could copy all this HTML in, but just look what happens. Okay. So let's see if we copy this, copy element. I think this will work. We can go in here, and I'm sure Randall Monroe will not be too mad at me. But yeah, look at how ugly this is now. We got rid of all of the CSS, so there's no style at all. And what you're seeing is the raw version of, and let's just get rid of the head. Actually, we don't need that. There's the body. It's the same. I think I got rid of maybe an image or something, but yeah, okay. So this is the structure of HTML. It's not very pretty, not super pretty. Obviously, you can kind of see where you need to go. Oops, my oops is still there. I forgot to change that back. We'll leave it. We can actually change anything we need, and this is cool though, because this little site lets you, do whatever you want. You can change stuff. But yeah, and typically you want to follow the same pattern. So what's happening here? Notice how these things are indented. This is called, what is it called? What is it called when you indent these things? Somebody's got the answer. Oh, Jason, put it inside the thread. We're still on HTML. Nesting. Nesting is what it is. What's cool about nesting, and I'd have to go through every single one of these and fix it, but I might not give myself the time to do that. What I also might do is simplify this a little bit to just write, let's get to the, let's get down to the image and then quit that. So let's go down here and get rid of all of this stuff. Oops, I got rid of the body in the HTML. Here we go. All right. Okay, so now I'm just showing this part right here, and we've got this list. We've got these links here. There's an image that's broken, and I think this image is broken because for some reason you can do this cool thing with websites. If you want to build your links, you can just, if you don't put your initial domain at the beginning of it, it will automatically link it to that top level domain, and it'll work. But if you copy it out to obviously another page, then it's not going to reference that. So you have to maybe I thought there was something else I had to do with this here. Totally forgot. I ran into this. I ran into this once. I used this site as an example. There it is. Okay. So I put on the HTTP and we're good. And it brought it back. Okay. So yeah, this is that exact file, this xkcd file. If you note, we could go to it in a new tab, and here it is. Okay. Yeah. There it is. So we brought it back. Now let's give this site a little bit more structure. Okay. So we've basically gone over some semantics. What a little bit more about that is you know, semantic HTML. You have these tags that are more meaningful. Okay, so we want to have meaningful tags. Div and span are not really that meaningful. Div is a generic division of your code in a block. So it'll, you put in another div, it'll jump it down a line. And a span is just a generic some span, you know, some space. It's nothing meaningful. It just means some space, and it's what it is it's a division of code in a line. So if you put in a span, it won't break down a line. It will just do it inside the text itself. Okay, but something more semantic would be something like form, that means like a, you know, form you'd fill out, a table. So okay, something that has rows and columns. An article. Article would be, okay, this is the section, this article, inside my article is where I put my you know, my text for my article, my images for my article, all that. So having a more specific page with headers, navs, sections, articles, you know, a sidebar and footers, this makes the computer a lot more understanding. Okay, so it's going to inform the internet that you have this very meaningful, informative web page, and that's really good. That's what you want. If everything's divs, it's not going to understand nearly as well what your page is trying to say. So this would be a very semantic way to organize things. You have a header, you have a paragraph, and these are nested inside a section. The nesting is important, okay? It's just saying inside my boxes, I've got other boxes, right? Containers inside containers, all right? And it's just containers all the way down. You can nest unlimited levels deep. You don't want to, though. Obviously, you want to be able to understand your code. Some things are going to be nested, obviously, a lot of levels deep. But if you can help it, try not to. Try to only nest only as deep as you really need to, and that will help your code be very legible and everything. And that goes for basically everything you do in code. Notice how this automatically indented the closing tag, okay, in the right space. So this right here is a tag. You know, it's inside these two carets. And this is an opening tag, and this is a closing tag. This is a UL element. So this entire thing is an unordered list element. So this is a div element. This is a body element, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. And you've got these things nested. All right. Let's close that. Ah! Ooh, I accidentally opened that up by pressing F12. So now you know. Don't press F12 unless you mean to. All right, so that's that. Could probably do some simple things here. Could probably nest those somehow, but I'm not gonna. All right, so there's some span. All right, so a webcomic of romance, sarcasm, math, and language. Notice how these are on this, it's like kind of on the same line. It's like bleeding together. That's not too great. But if I change it to a div, then it's going to be quite different. So I'm going to do this, and instead of being on the same line, it's going to jump onto the next line. Just watch. Okay, so you saw that? Did you see it? Or was it too fast? Let's see. There you go. You see? This is going to jump back down. So watch my cursor. It's over here. It's going to jump back down in the next line. Wait. There we go. It's going to jump down the left side. There we go. Okay, so jump down. What's happening there is some levels, some items are block elements. Okay, so certain things are block elements, and certain things are inline elements. So block elements in HTML. And don't worry about all the links. I'm going to share all of these links with you at the end of class, okay? And you'll be able to play with those. But these are all of the block level elements in HTML. And what that means is that they're always going to start on a new line. And by default, they're going to take up the full width available. So they're going to stretch all the way left and right as far as they can. So technically, this div right here, okay? So this div right here that has this text in it is stretching all the way to the right. It's this block that goes the full width of the page. But if it's in a span, it's just inline. It only takes up as much width as it needs to, okay? All right, so these are the different block level elements, things that once you put them in, they're gonna jump onto a new line. You can change their behavior. So this is default behavior, right? You can change it to an inline element, but you do that with CSS. And these are all of the inline elements. So things that if you put them in, they're meant to just stay in the same line and take up as little space as possible, okay? So now, we should probably break soon, but we're getting there. Let's finish making this as pretty as can be. I believe we just have to do that, and that, and that, and that's pretty much it. I think I might have, I think I got rid of some, when I was deleting all the stuff, I think I got rid of a close tag, so we close the little div right here. There, now the division is closed. The division is currently closed for repairs. So now we've got this very short page. It's not great, but notice also that there are some, should probably fix that. There are some default styles, okay? HTML was built in with certain styles. Some of those have been deprecated. Deprecated means they are no longer used. They're no longer meaningful. In some cases, they are completely broken. Like we used to have style in HTML. We used to have things like a bold tag, which would make your things bold. We kind of still have that a little bit with a strong tag. I wonder if it would even work in here. Let's see. So, oh, it worked. Okay, so this is basically deprecated. You're not supposed to do this anymore because you can do this with CSS instead and keep all of your style in your CSS and then all of your structure in your HTML. That's the goal, okay? But you still have the possibility of doing stuff like this. So you could do a, whenever you close something up, you gotta do a // and as you could see, it's only boldening these two words right here, of romance. So these two words, of romance, are currently bolded with this strong tag because they have like a strong, beefy lettering. But this is an old style of tag. We don't really use it anymore. Instead, what you would typically do is, and this is reasonable if you're really only going to try to make two words bold, like nobody's going to shout at you. But if you're trying to make a whole section bold, typically what you would do is you would use some CSS. So let's get, what we'll do is we'll take a break real quick, and then when we come back, we will answer some questions, and then we will we will get into some CSS. And then what I'm going to have you do is add some style. Today we'll have you add some style to a page, and just play around with that a little bit, and you can have some fun with that. But after we learn how to do the style with CSS. So now it is break time. I've got this little cute little break timer here, which you may have used in the past. But let me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save this code pen, and we're going to have our CSS section down here. Okay, let me just close that. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Close that JavaScript. So we're going to put all of our CSS down in here and have some fun with it. And we're probably going to copy some examples from the CSS that's built into xkcd.com. But let me just, this is saved now. Feel free, if you don't like the way it auto saves, you can go in here to behavior and turn auto updating off. And what it will do is it'll give you a run button, and then that'll work. And then to make your own copy of this CodePen and then play in your own little sandbox in your CodePen account, you go down here to the very bottom right and you click fork. Used to be a big old button in a more conspicuous place, but for some reason they put it down here. Maybe it isn't used so much. So there is the link to the CodePen. Feel free to play around, but I order you to take a break. And when I say take a break, like, do yourself a favor. Feel free to turn your camera off during the break, stretch, get up, get some snacks, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. Don't just sit around. Don't just sit tight and do more code. Give your brain a break. It's very helpful. Very important thing to do. So let me put this code pen in here. Let's do a UI, HTML, CSS code pen. Let's do an XKCD HTML CSS code pen. No CSS in there yet, but there will be. Oh, I promise you, we're going to put some CSS in there and make it look good. All right, and feel free to put questions in the question link, and we will get back to CSS after the break. Oh, but quick recap. We learned about HTML. We learned about semantic elements. We learned about block elements and inline elements. And we learned about nesting, okay? So very important, cool stuff. Jonathan Adams, no, I did not yet get a new computer. That is definitely something I need to I should get on that. I should probably do that soon. Break time. See ya in a bit. 5 minutes. Okay, I think I'm back. Okay. Okay, yes, replies. Fantastic. Nice, Deontay. I used to live in Maryland myself, actually, mostly in Virginia. But yeah. All right, question time per the schedule. We have question time, so we should do a break later after we go over some CSS selectors and specificity, and then we will go from there. Basically, we'll have another break, and then we'll just get into question challenge and then questions. Cool. Now, feel free to open the question link. Here it is. Come on. Oh, haven't refreshed this page in a little bit. All right. Maybe we can upsize this a teensy bit. Yeah, that's good. So what's the difference between div and span? Div is a generic block level element, and a span is a generic inline element. So why don't we take a look at what that looks like? So if we take, let's see here, for some reason we've got, funny enough, oh, those two are side by side in the same line. If we turn this, you know, let's pick one of the words. Okay, so this word right here, math. If we really wanted to cause a ruckus, we could make this, oh, a ruckus. Oh, that's the song for next time. Super fun one. We'll, don't look for a song called Ruckus. It's not called that. It's a really fun one. We'll get into that. What we're gonna do is turn this into a div so you can see what divs do. So let's just do that as a div. Okay, div. And we save and we run. What's going on? So what div did is it made it a block. Okay, it made it a block level element because it's inside a div now. It's not just a regular text. Regular text would be an inline element or a piece of an inline element typically. But since it's a div, it now is on its own line and takes the whole width of the page. If we turn this into a span, make it add to span as well, then it is going to go back to an inline element. Okay, so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the page, doesn't skip down a line, doesn't take up the whole width. It only takes up as much width as it needs just for the contents, really, okay? So that's that. So that is the difference between div and span. It's really just the difference between block level elements and inline elements. Block elements and inline elements. Keep saying block level, but that has to do with JavaScript. We'll get there. What's the difference between div and section? What does it really mean, or functions to use each? Okay, so really the only difference, the only major difference between div and section is that section is more semantic. So if we use this and we say section instead, that is a more semantic tag, a semantic element. So what that means is it's just more meaningful, okay? And a page will understand that better as something different than something else. Really, kind of from the perspective of a section, it's like visually, what you should learn it as is you use section tags to divide visible sections of the page. Okay, you use divs like large sections of the page, but you use divs to kind of wrap You use divs really just to kind of wrap individual elements. So in this case, this div, for example, is wrapping this one specific linked image. So that's a better use of a div. Divs are kind of good for wrapping specific images, or maybe if you just need to wrap something and put a class on it, it's good for a div. But typically section has more to do with the way the page is structured and broken down, okay? Div doesn't really have anything to do with that. It's just if you need to use a class or you need to use some style and you want to apply it to a specific element or to a specific, or some specific block of code, okay? Can you suggest other resources for HTML and CSS code other than our training kit? Yeah, I mean, number one resources are always going to be w3schools.com, okay? This is going to be your number one. It might be behind developer.mozilla.org, the MDN web docs, because these guys have just nailed CSS, and then basic JavaScript. That's basically the basics. So these are the two major ones. If you go to the web docs on here for MDN, and then if you go to w3schools.com, w3schools.com has pretty much everything else that you need. Ready? Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's copy that. All right, so those are your two major links for all of your resources for HTML and CSS. Yeah. They're very, very important. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff out there. A very nice thing is CSS tricks. So, and basically, there aren't going to be a whole ton of very useful references on purely HTML. If you want, you can kind of research the difference between HTML5 and HTML4. That's a really good thing to look at. But for the most part, to edit your HTML, you're going to use CSS. So and maybe JavaScript later on. But JavaScript is an entire world. The entire world of mobile development, app development, web development is JavaScript's domain. But just how to make a simple, static, basic, still life web page look good is all CSS. Okay, so CSStricks.com, fantastic site for that. We know that with time, we need to use all the semantic tags and remember it, but for our first steps, which ones are the most important to use and remember? Okay, well, let's take a look. The most important ones are going to be kind of these ones that is or covered here in interneting is hard is a really good one as well. But let's take a look at semantics in HTML on this page here. So semantics in HTML. So these are the semantic elements, okay? These are some of the roughly 100 semantic elements available. There are a few. These are pretty semantic, or pretty well. The most common ones, though, would be, let me go back to the W3 schools for this one, because I really like the list on this. This is basically the same list there, but honestly, some of these, like nav, is extremely semantic. So let me just give you the basics right here. Let's just do a common semantic elements. Why don't you guys, and we'll do a new discussion thread real quick. Let's do a new, just it's further down on our page, and I don't want you guys to have to scroll up to find the thread too much. Eeps, where is, let's do another, you pinned it. Ah, you did pin it. Okay, all right, well, I don't want to confuse things. Use the pins. Go to the pin, go to the HTML thread and reply, which are the most semantic HTMLs? I want some feedback on this. Okay, I've got some ideas, but give me some basics, okay? Nav, we already talked about. A is anchor tag. Those are just for links. Those are extremely semantic. All of the headers, H1 through H4, I think H6, those are headers. They have a default style. They're bold and they're bigger than regular paragraph tags, which are a P. And then you have other things that have said article, oops, why am I doing, I switched between commas and periods. That's definitely confusing. Okay, and section, very good. A header, footer. You can imagine what headers and footers are. Like this is a header for the page. Right here, this is a footer for the page. Down here, you can see. Okay, and address, yeah, that's one. Aside is kind of like a sidebar, and yeah, all kinds of little stuff. Main is yeah, I mean obviously main and head and body. Those are very semantic as well. HTML obviously is the most semantic thing there is. Image, oh, image, forgot image. Okay, so you'll have to know what these are. You'll have to know what all of these mean. Yep, and that's pretty much the bulk of them. Oh yes, unordered lists. Oops. Unordered lists and ordered lists. Ordered lists are giving you a numbered list. And we said nav. Figure is kind of semantic. Yeah, I think it was on the list, wasn't it? But I haven't. You don't see it used a whole lot. But oh yeah, obviously list item is what goes in those unordered and ordered lists. So let's just keep it at this for now. For my summary. Super awesome coding hint right now. Control and / or command and / on a Mac will comment out a section of code. So to be quick, highlight the code that you want, or at least the lines, and any lines that you have highlighted. If you click that key combination, Control or Command, let me just everything's Control on Windows, so Control plus / let's do a dash instead. Control and then on Windows, command / on Mac, you comment. All right, and commenting is cool. Commenting just, it creates this section that's not visible or that doesn't mean anything to your code. It's just there for you. It's just there for people that are reading, okay? So that's a nice little code hack, life hack, important thing. All right, so those are your common semantic elements, extremely important. Very basic steps on that. How do you change the layout on CodePen to be like yours? If you don't like your layout on CodePen, maybe because this section is down here or over here or whatever, you click on the biggest button on the page, change view, and you go to the editor layout right here. Not sure what other thing you're looking for particularly. I haven't actually played with a lot of these other views or done much of the other settings to change colors and things like that. But you can feel free to play around. Okay. Okay. I definitely want to explain that real quick. Auto format on CodePen. So in the settings, there are some things for auto formatting. It's basically, a lot of things are built in. So if you type, for example, P for paragraph, and then you hit tab, instant paragraph tag, paragraph element. Okay, so that's a nice little trick. Let's do, let me see if I can do that around. So right here, obviously, I think this should rather be a paragraph, not a div, because that would be more semantic. So I changed it. Is it going to change the look of the page? Not one bit, but it's going to be more meaningful for the browser to read it, okay? Very important. Oh, container, that's a good one. I will lie and say, we are going to put one more in here, container. I kind of like that one. I mean, it's, I don't know, doesn't mean a whole lot, but yeah. Isn't there a shortcut to auto indent? So as far as auto indenting, if you are on the, if you're nested, then most IDEs, most interactive development environments or integrated, or whatever IDE stands for, if you hit that, it'll jump you to the correct line. Typically, it'll jump you down an indent. Okay, so auto indentation is happening when you skip a line in these stuff. Okay, that's happening. No worries there. Nesting. Okay, so nesting is this. Nesting is where the indentation doesn't matter. Okay, that's just a visual help. That's all that is. Now, when I say it doesn't matter, it matters to you and it matters to people that read your code. Make sure your stuff is indented properly so you can understand, so you have that helpful visual cue where your elements are. Are they nested or are they not? Okay. Everything inside an HTML file is nested except for the HTML tag, okay? Because this is part of, it's inside this HTML tag here, okay? And it comes down here. And this is the last little bit of indenting that I didn't do. There we go, okay. So as you can see, this starts with an HTML tag, follows with a body tag, and then follows with the rest of the code inside my body. And then it ends with the final bit of code inside the body. Then the body tag closes, then the HTML tag closes. That's what nesting is. So nesting, think of like these, they say nesting, these Russian nesting dolls. It's where you fit one smaller doll inside the bigger doll, and then it goes smaller inside that one, smaller doll inside that one, until you get to a little tiny doll in the middle. So that's what nesting is, okay? It's putting something smaller inside something bigger. And not necessarily size-wise as far as how it looks on the page, but but where it is structured, okay? So if you have a header section, all the stuff that pertains to your header section is going to be inside header tags, nested inside your header tags. And then all the stuff inside those header tags, or the stuff inside, nested inside there, could have stuff nested inside it. And the nesting isn't just for structuring just the way you read your HTML. It's important when we talk about CSS, which we're going to talk about now. CSS is basically going to, if you apply some CSS at a higher level, unless it is overridden by anything, it'll automatically apply to the children, okay? So think of nesting as a parent-child relationship. That's what it is. So there's a parent and there is a child. HTML is the parent of body. Body is the child of HTML, okay? This relationship here is obvious, okay? So list items, you typically only ever see a list item if it's inside of a list, okay? And this is an unordered list. So this is the parent and this is the child. This is another child. It's not, this isn't the child of this one. This LI is not the parent of this one. Okay? It's so these are siblings, all right? They're side by side on the same scope. And that's another word you can learn is scope. Yeah. Scope. Scope is super important. Everything is about scope in code. Scope basically says, does the thing that like what can my code see? Okay, what can my code see? It can see the stuff above it in certain ways. It can see the stuff below it in certain ways. And this has to do with what Alan just said, inheritance. The child, like I said, if you put some style feature on a higher element, sometimes it gets inherited, so it also affects lower elements. It doesn't go all the way down necessarily. Doesn't do that in certain ways. It can easily be overridden, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, so that's what nesting is putting elements inside other elements. That's all that nesting is. It has a lot of consequences, but that's the basic. And they asked also to go over the container tag, and then I've got to quit and not talk about container. 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 Oops. Let's do container tag. Let's try that. Yeesh, this search is terrible. HTML container tag. Okay. Oh, is there a container tag or like a container element? Okay, hang on a second. Element. Okay, no, I don't think there's a specific. I thought there was, but no, I don't think there's a specific one. It's what we call. It's just another. That's just another word that we use when we're talking about, one thing being contained in another in a nesting when we're nesting. Okay, so to reduce the confusion, since I couldn't find that, I'm going to take that off. Okay. All right. So yeah, so anything that contains something else, anything that has anything nested inside it is a container. All right, let's get to some CSS. So how would you like to structure some of this stuff? Well, let's get an idea from here. Yeah. Let's bring that back down. So look how these are structured up here. They're in a certain way. Notice one thing, they are in all caps. All right, lots of other little things too. To find the CSS file on many pages, not every single one. Sometimes they make it a little bit harder to find, but this one makes it pretty easy. There's typically a link tag up here in the head, and then you've got it right here. Let's see if I can open that one. Yes, it worked. Ooh. Here we have some style. So let's walk you through, what does this style mean? All right, I want you to be able to read most of this. Okay, so what's happening now is that some style is being applied to my document. Want to see it be applied? All right, let's do a CSS thread. All right, I want you, you're doing pink. Please react. Don't just reply, but first things first, react to my CSS thread post in Slack. Give me energy. I need your energy. Okay. We are going to hit the run button and we're going to see what it does to the page. We already kind of remember because we just saw it, but it's going to do some cool stuff. Ah! Okay, it might not look exactly the way we want it to. Maybe because we got rid of something or something else is missing. But little by little, right? I think we killed something here. It's unlocked. Hold on one second. Somebody's at the door. Be right back. My business partner just walked in. I hadn't seen him in a while. So, all right. No, Nick, don't throw a party. I'm here. Okay. So we got some structure here. Let's make sure that maybe we can see why. I'm not exactly sure why the rest of it didn't show up, but bit by bit we won't complicate it. We got this though. Okay, so let's see how we got that. Let's see what is going to affect that code. So we've got links here. There's an ID top left, an ID top container. Where do you think this is? Probably in top left. Well, first things first, you can collapse things and notice that 11 lines of code are inside this collapsed element. So they are nested inside this container. So we can go in here and we can feel free to change this to section if we want to be a little bit more specific to this section right here. That would be good. And save that and run that. But what's tying the style to this information that we have in the HTML is this little thing that we have called an ID. And there are lots of different little things we can use to tie some style in. But we have this thing here, top left, okay? So we go down in here into our CSS. Don't worry about our body, we'll get past that in a little bit. Let's separate these a little bit so you can see them, read them a little bit more easily. There we go. Very cool stuff going on here. Okay, so some things are missing and we don't have to worry about too much of that. Okay. But top left, we have a certain width. We're floating left, position relative, text align left, padding 17. So we can change some of these things. We can get into them, all right? So we have top left. Okay, all right, so width, we can change the width of this element. You know, let's give this element a margin, see if we can do that. Margin, let's do 5 pixels. And run, let's see how that does here. Oh, that was unexpected. It gave me this, it dropped this down this huge section. Okay, let's take that out for a little bit. Okay, here they are. So inside my top left ID, I have anchor tags, okay? So what this syntax right here is saying is in this selector, and that's what this syntax is, we have this selector, it's this block of code right here. In this block of code, specifically for my any anchor tags that are nested inside a top left, I have this this specification on it. All right, I have this font size, and I can change this right now. Or let me first, since I undid that other change, it's going to bump it back up. All right, let's change this to 31, and watch what happens. The size of these letters, woo, they got bigger. All right, so you can manipulate the size of the elements in here with font size. There's a font size. And it doesn't matter if you're dealing with text or you're dealing with other stuff, it's always going to be font size. And you could bring this back down. You could make this 10 if you wanted to. Run it. Okay. And we are in our, feel free to put replies, any comments, any questions, put it in the CSS thread that we have now pinned. Okay. Ooh, super tiny, way too small. You know what? I liked it up closer to about 30 pixels, but it was a bit big, so let's do 25, and then you should be able to read it fairly clearly. Fantastic. And there's a font weight, 800. That's what's making it really thick. Thick is cool. And then there's this on hover, there's a text decoration. So the decoration is kind of what is the default decoration for things, like how list items have this bullet point, that's a decoration. And text decoration, if you add a text decoration, you can add things like an underline only when it is hovering. Okay, so this is called a pseudo class. All right, so I've kind of jumped around and showed you a few things. So let's tell you about the theory. There is a certain specific order to the way that to how some selectors in CSS, and each selector is this block of code. Okay, some selectors are kind of more important than others. All right, some are more universal than others. Some are more specific. So we're gonna have to jump through this to be fairly quick, but basically, some things, yeah, like I said, are more universal, and some are more specific. And I have this one code pen. I'm gonna see if I can open it up here. Let's go to here. I have one that is a good review of all this stuff. Let me see if I've got it here. Specificity. Yes. Ooh, okay, so it's in one of these. They look similar, don't they? And yes, they look pretty similar to what's in the training kit. There we go. All right. Yes, I think this is the one. Let me double check, because I want to be good about when. It doesn't tell me when these were created, but let's see which one of the ones has. Ooh, I like that. All right. Okay. This is cool. All right, so I'm going to give you guys this too. This is a more, this will be a more orderly review for your, just as a reference guide. Really organized header, H1, as you can see, H1 is a specific, and many of you that did this in the training kit will see, we'll have this, but I've organized this in main heading, navigation, specific links, and then organizing into sections and headers and paragraphs and spans and everything. Okay, HTML is pretty simple. You've seen that, and here's a very very orderly description of the CSS selectors. Okay, so just to review the just to go over it all ahead of time, there are these different types of CSS selectors. Some are element selectors, so they will affect every time you see that element in the HTML. So if I want to affect all of my paragraphs on the entire page, I can do that by just saying P. Okay, if I want to do all the links on the entire page, I can just put A. That's it. And so you just put the name of the HTML element, and there you go. Bigger than that, if I want to change everything on the entire page, I can use the universal selector. So it's just using the wildcard symbol, this asterisk, and it's kind of a wildcard. Okay, that will affect everything on the page unless it's overridden by something else. So it is the least specific, so it applies the most universally, and it's the least specific. Just the same as saying, oh, life, that's very general. It's very universal, not very specific. I can override that with something more specific. Animals. Animals are one form of life. Bacteria are another. Virus are another, debatably. Fungus, they're a form of life. Plants, So that's more specific. And I can get deeper down. I can say, all right, well, different types of animals, different types of, let's see, mammals, they're very different from, non-mammals, because we've got reptiles and things that are very different from mammals. That's more specific. Okay, so that's that type of classification. So more specific than universal is elements. Any of these semantic elements or non-semantic elements in HTML. And then more specific than that, you have classes. Okay, so classes are this thing you're going to use all the time. Probably going to use that more than anything else. And you start a class with a period. Okay, so you start it with a little, okay, right there. And then you do the class name. And that class name is whatever you want. You want it to be pretty specific to the type of thing that you're actually putting it on. So you're usually going to name it after that section of the page, or if it does something interactive, what it's there for, then you'll have that there, okay? What classes let you do is they let you add a specific block of code, a block of style, to anywhere that you want, okay, in your code. Multiple times you could say, I want this class to apply on this section, on this paragraph, on that image over there. I want it to apply in all these different places. That helps you organize things quite a bit. Don't worry about the units here, just focus on pixels for today. So I could change this, if I wanted to, I could change this to 12 pixels. And then it would, ooh, that's kind of small. Let's do 18 pixels. All right, that's better. So this is also set to 18 pixels, that's fine. But yeah, that's how classes work. They just have a dot here, and then when you call them up here, the way you use classes is you have to actually go into your HTML, and inside your HTML tag right after the name. I mean, you can go anywhere in there, but typically you do it right after the name. You say class equals, and then the name of the class that you defined in here with the dot. So this dot example class is the same as what goes in here with example class. You don't put the dot right here. You don't do that. It does not work. Okay. As you can see, it killed my style. It's like, what is this? What is it talking about? So let's remember that one thing. You'll remember that fairly quickly. Okay. So do that. That's how you call your classes inside your HTML. Okay. All right. And then down in here, I have this commented out, but this is a pseudo class right here. You don't use CSS much for content, but it's possible. So if you go right here, you can actually, so if I hover over my links, then they will turn white. Ooh. I haven't made them disappear. I've merely made them turn white. So they're actually still there if you highlight over them. I can teach you a way to make it actually disappear. Do you want to see that? So if you do, instead of color white, you do actually visibility hidden. Visibility hidden. Okay, all right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to comment out that line and then save. And now instead of turning white, it's actually going to disappear. Ooh, oh, it's so tricky. Look at that, how tricky it is. I need to actually be clicking, hovering over somewhere inside it. But it hides, it disappears. It disappears for like a second. All right, so it's completely disappeared right now. Man, it's being so interesting. So it can disappear if you do that. If you want it to like not just be invisible to the page, but like disappear, you can do this. Display none. And then save that. Hey man. And then we do that, and then it will actually make the entire element disappear completely from the code. And we'll get more into that later. But yeah, neat little tricks you can use. Changing colors and making things disappear, like magicians, like the magicians you are. Okay. But that is called a pseudo class. And pseudo class, you can put it on anything, but basically you're typically going to put it on like a class or an element. And it's when you hover over it is the most common one, but you can use all kinds of them. You know, go to pseudo classes. There's all kinds of things. Like I think you can do things like on mouse down, all kinds of stuff. So first child, that's cool. So if, you know, nesting in the very first one, like the first paragraph of bunch of paragraphs, maybe it would be have a certain style to it, all kinds of things. So if the link is visited, you know how this always annoys you whenever the link has been visited and you're like, why can't that link change back to the original color? then that's something that's that trick that they're using. If the link has been visited, it will change colors from blue to purple. I always find that annoying. But here's the list of all the pseudo elements. Okay. Pseudo classes. Okay. ID, we talked about that first. It's going to be marked by this hashtag. It'll start with that. And then you can use that like you can use class, but you can only use it once on the page. All right. It'll basically yell at you and be like, don't do that if you try to use it more than once. In a lot of sites, it's not going to compile the HTML. Okay. So, oh, okay. So somebody saw this and asked, what is this doing? You want to see? Ooh. Ooh, you know what? I'm making it white. I don't know if I can do that. Let's see. Here, let's undo that. So if ooh, there we go. So that's what hover before does. When you hover over it, or that's what before does really. It's going to it does stuff to the left of the content, and after, if you do you know, colon after, it'll do stuff to the right of the content. So that's kind of a cool thing. You can actually add content to your page using CSS. It's not a strength of CSS to add content to your page. That's more of a thing for JavaScript, but you can do it. So neat little trick. All right, so let me just do that. Set that back. You can feel free to play with that. All right, and yeah, as I'm going down this list, I'm getting more specific. So basically, if I put a class on one thing that makes it do one thing, and then I put an ID on it also that makes it do something else, the ID is going to take precedence. Okay, it's going to be more important. That's a very important thing to know. All right, and that's basically how it goes. The only thing more specific than IDs are inline styles. So if I go in here and I say specifically style equals color, let's change it. What color do you want? I could do brown, and then we save it, and it changes color. See? So you can do that, and you can change it to color black. Oops, black. And it should change. I have it set to automatic. So there you go. Change to black, change to white. So this overrides everything else. The other thing that overrides everything like super is by doing important. I've had to use important before. You almost never have to use it. If you own the project, there's like no reason you ever have to use important. But if you do, it's because you can't necessarily, maybe you copied someone else's project and you don't want to mess with anything inside their project. You can just slap an important somewhere, and then that will override everything. So I had to deal with that. Like some people have these really old WordPress pages, all these outdated plugins, dozens of plugins, outdated themes. And so I'm like, all right, I need to make this thing do what I need it to do to fix the page because it's broken. You can put on an important, and then that'll fix it. You know, so all kinds of things you can do with important, but that's because it is superpowers. The only other thing that's more specific, you can have a specific section for style. So you could actually just straight up put some style, so like write out some CSS directly into your HTML in a style tag. So you could basically do style, and then I should probably do that the right way. So if we do style like that, then inside here you could put basically put your you could You could, put your selectors inside that, and that's one way to do it. That's how it used to be. You'd put your CSS inside your HTML. That's why you have that style tag. Nowadays, you basically just link out to your outside CSS file. Okay. Yeah, it's helpful to override these bloated web libraries, themed web pages, templates that are all messy. Okay, so that's the idea of what it is for specificity. So the more specific something is, the less it really applies, the less it can be used. Typically, is more it overrides the other settings. Okay, and then the only other thing now to specify is this concept of inheritance. I'm going to go over it actually real quick, and then instead of a second break, what I'm going to do is just give you a short challenge, and then we'll be done. So done for tonight, and then you'll go on to do your projects. So the idea of inheritance is that you have this, and I've got this parent-child relationship here. You can see this parent is up here, this child is down here. The way inheritance works is if you apply certain CSS to the parent, it will apply to the child. And you can change things by having the child kind of override the parent. So certain things are inherited by the parent, or from the parent to the child. Sorry to be confusing, and then the child can change those. So right up here, a revolutionary new school that invests in you. It is green, but if I change this right here, I change this to red. Let's try that there. Oh, I think I had this specified in another place. Oh, example class. Okay, so I'm gonna do this real quick. Comment that out. Gray. Okay, so now this color, this red, is actually applying to this right here. I'm just gonna see what happens as I move down. All right, so notice the color is not being inherited. You can change this here. I can make it, see, where's the child? Okay, so that's child. We change this to, if we change this to child right here, this will be, oops, there we go. Now it's green, okay. Any other, let me go right here. There was one other thing I wanted to show you with inheritance, so I'm gonna jump to it from the training kit. But whoa, it looks like I haven't entered the training kit. I haven't refreshed this page on this computer in a little bit. There's these 2-week breaks in between units called build weeks that you'll do. And yeah, I haven't been to this computer in a little bit. All right, feel free to put any questions that you have in the Slido link, and check that in the pin. Okay. All right. So, like I said about this this inheritance, it has to do with that HTML structure and how things are inherited to the child. Okay. All right. So there's my HTML structure. Let's go to back to here, and then show you this an example in our live code. So let's actually let's take this class off, and then let's put that right in here. right. There we go. All right, now I don't know, is that div closed? There's that div, it's closed later. All right. So since this is nested, this H2, let me see if there's anything else that's making that a certain, so it's gray because that's the universal color that's being applied. But is there anything preventing that from being red? Can you guys spot the issue? If you can spot the issue, feel free to put it in there. I'm trying to see what's making this not be red. Okay, because I've got this parent right here saying the color should be red. You can also do this background color. Oh, I made my background color red. Okay, for the entire section, of course. So H1 had red. Okay. Is it an H1 though? No, it's an H2. So, but if anybody can see it, this is getting me a little bit frustrated. I don't like it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to copy this in and it's going to behave. I'm going here. Oops. And then I can change. All right. All right. Okay. I've simplified my example, so it's just the one from the training kit. We have a parent set to red, and notice I didn't actually put the style directly on the paragraph. I put it on the div just outside. So the paragraph inherited the red color from the parent class. Okay. And so in my previous example, there's something interfering with it. So I wanted to I want to clarify that. I'll do that on my own time. If you can find it out and let me know, that'd be great. And then green, I'm overriding that. So now it's going to be green. And then it's going to, that's inherited by the child there. And I've got a grandchild here too. I'm going to make that red. We'll see if anything happens here. So notice when I take the color off of the grandchild, the color is going to continue to be inherited from the child. So the grandchild actually is inheriting. So this right here is inheriting color from this right here because it's higher up. All right. So let me, I'm bringing it back now. Here's the, there we go. So now my, now this is back to exactly the way it was before. And we have this old inheritance example down in here. So if you can figure this out and let me know what's going on with this, that would be fantastic. I think there's something something influencing it. Obviously, the child color here is turning this this green right here. Actually, no, that's this example class. So this example class is taking precedence. Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah. So we'll play around with that. But that's the idea behind inheritance, is that if you set any style above, unless it's overridden, it'll get inherited down in the nested block. Okay, it'll get down, it'll get inherited all the way down. Okay. All right, we will take a break real quick and then come back and have you do a quick 5-minute challenge, and it's just going to be add some style. So what I'm going to do is give you basic block, and I want to just add whatever style you want to it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so another 5-minute break real quick, and we'll do that challenge. So take a break, breathe. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the delay, people. Yeah, it's yeah. So I wanted to make you a quick challenge. So what I'm gonna do, what I want you to do is I want you to take this, where am I? I've got, it wasn't this one. Ah, this one. Okay. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this page right here. I'm gonna send it to you. And I want you to change as much as you can in 5 minutes, however you like it. And then we're just going to look. So challenge, copy, fork and change. All right, now try to keep track. Try to keep track of how many changes you make. And then in a little comment right here, just give me a rough estimate count of how many changes you've made. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that right there. Copy this and posting it right now. Okay, you guys have 5 minutes. 5 minutes starting now. Go to town. The fork button is down here. Okay, the fork button's right down there. Right here. Okay, fork. What the fork? Right there. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. And feel free to make some changes. Any changes? So go in here, change font sizes. That'll be obvious. Change text align. That'll change things from center to right side. Change font family. Look up fonts. All kinds of things you can do in here. A lot of this stuff doesn't apply because I deleted a lot of the HTML. So you might notice that. You have some extra IDs and stuff in here that doesn't apply, that don't even mean anything. But feel free to make changes. And change just the CSS, just the CSS. Only the CSS, don't change the HTML. Let me specify that. And then what you're gonna do at the end of 5 minutes, just the CSS, and then reply to this thread with your code pen. With your code pen link. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so there, I updated the instructions. As soon as the time is up, then I want you to post your reply to the code pen, and whoever has the most changes and it looks the most different without changing the HTML gets the most. We're gonna all react. We're all gonna react to everybody's posts, and we'll see. Okay, I'm only gonna highlight a couple, and then it's the end of the day. But that is the fun challenge that I've got for you right now. Go to town. Yes, you are competing for emojis. In the meantime, I'm going to answer the questions that are left. So can you override inline style with important is one of the questions, and the answer is yes. Important overrides everything. Okay. And then if the universal selector, the asterisk, refers to everything and all elements and inherited through the parent element, what's the difference between using the universal selector and using the body? So body would be a specific element. Okay. Technically, there could be something outside the body, but well, here's the thing. The asterisk would actually refer to all the different types of elements, not just the body element. Okay, the body is one element. The asterisk, actually, the universal selector is not an element selector. It doesn't refer to any specific elements. It refers to every element, every single thing out there. Specifically all of the elements, the HTML elements. So it'll, so that they're different because the body would refer to just, and because of inheritance, you make a good point, but they are technically different. okay? Practically very similar, technically different, okay? Yeah. And the main difference is that if you did both, the body element would take superiority because the body element is an element selector, and the universal selector is not an element selector. So body element is slightly more specific. As such, it would be there. Okay. Make sure you're saving. Okay, so yours might be set so it's not auto saving. You might need to run it. Remember, your settings are up here. You can go to behavior and then turn on auto updating and turn on format on save, turn on save automatically. Those things will happen. Okay. And remember to post your reply in the link, in the reply to my thread, please. The thread where I posted the original link. You got 20 seconds. I want you to post them all to my post that I did on 8/24. Ten things is good. Okay. So make sure you forked it first. All right, so time is up there. All right, make sure you forked it. Let's take a look. If you're still wondering if it's not LMA, you're going to post your link, look up to where I posted my link, and then hit reply just like we've been doing with the other threads. All right, so we've got a few. I'm just going to open up the first 3 or 4. So I've got Gustav. Oops, no. What's going on? It's, ooh, my computer's being all wacky. Ah. All right, moving this over here. I got to close a bunch of links, people. Sorry about that. Okay, hey, that's red. That is very red. We've got some things over here. Nice outlines. Okay. So what's happening here is you'll see lots of examples of ways that you can change the way you're doing it. Thanks, Gustavo. All right, Troy. Let's check out Troy's, and then it's time for me to go. Ooh, I like new page background. Some different styling there. All right, and let's do patience. Ooh. Patience and Darren and Danny and Brandon. Oops, and yeah, so this wasn't you know, this isn't meant to be a contest in how fast you can do it, because you can make things look visually different in a lot of ways pretty quick with just a few things. But I wanted to see what creatively you could do if you were just trying to just do anything. So you change the nav there, okay? Ooh, I like this. You changed it so that they're side by side. Ooh, all right. So a number of little changes. Great. All right, so good, fun little exercise. So we didn't have more time for it, but good things. Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah. So feel free to hide the previews if you've posted it in the main thread, and it'll help people scroll through. But oh, you know what? Hold that thought. I need to share my screen because I always do this and I'm neglected to do it. I want to make sure that you get to see this. We are going a few minutes over, so I apologize. But it's important to review the project, okay? All right, so this is going to be, you know, basically similar to one of the exercises in the training kit for the lesson. All you're going to do is practice marking this up with semantic HTML. Okay, so just consider using these basic ones right here. And then don't do anything with the CSS. So just the HTML, and you're just going to go in here and give it some very nice, just like this, give it some very nice structure. So if you basically keep this code pen handy, this project for Sweetie's HTML markup shouldn't be hard at all. Okay. And then this also does not have some very intricate CSS, but what you're going to do is you're going to add and change the CSS in different ways. And what's great about this compared to the challenge we just did is it'll give you some very specific instructions. So it should look a certain way when you're done. Okay. So those are the projects for tonight from the training kit. All right. So talk to your TL. You're actually going to submit it in your forms to your TL. Yes, I believe they are due tomorrow. What if you did the stretch? If you get a stretch, then you get a gold star. That's very, very good. Do the stretch if you have time and you understand everything. I don't have the gold stars, but you know what? I said you would get it, so let me give you a gold star. Let me see if I can find one. Star. There's got to be a gold one. There you go. There we go. There you go. Okay, so that is it for the project. All right, I don't want to keep you guys too late. This was our first day. Pat yourselves on the back. If you can't reach too far back, like some of you if you can't like do this where you can like touch one hand to the other, then just do a finger, okay, from the front. And then that's fine. But it was a good day. Really good to know you. I try to be helpful as much as I can outside of class too. I, don't have unlimited time. None of us do. We all have lives. But if you talk to, if you need help, first go to your TL. That's what they're there for. And your TL is basically someone who's another student like you. They're just a little bit further along, and they're there to help you. Your SLs too. But if they're tied up with another student, or you went to them and they couldn't quite figure it out, then let me know. Okay, I need you to be successful. I'll go into more of that next time, but we're doing this for you. We really are. You're basically our, I mean, it's the same as in a university in the sense that you are our clients, right? You're kind of our customers. And if we don't deliver a quality product to you, then you might quit, you might leave. And then we wouldn't get any benefit out of having taught you anything, and so we're going to be here teaching and teaching and teaching, trying to help you, and we're not going to get any real benefit from that until we find you a job, basically. You can try to find one too. It'll be much easier once you have the resources and the knowledge, but we're going to do everything we can to help you find that, and we're not going to get benefit until you do. So yeah, let me know if you need any help. And if you're ever seriously thinking, why did I do this? Why did I start this? And you're thinking life's just too hard for you to continue Lambda School, I want you to DM me. Just send me a message. I don't have to convince you otherwise, but I want to know why and how I can help to keep you on track, if that's what you really want to do. Okay. But front desk is there. Mental health is there. It's very, very important here at Lambda School. A lot of health, modern health. And there's and then your TLs will help you with the code, and I will too. All right. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the first night. Have a good one.